Station wagons are not very popular in the United States. In fact, they only make up 1.5% of the market. But did you know one automaker seems to have cracked the code on getting people to buy them? That being Subaru with the Outback. See, the Outback accounts for 85% of all wagons sold in America. That is an insane number. That means 85% of all wagons sold are a Subaru Outback. Now, what has Subaru stumbled upon here that other automakers haven't? They redesigned the Outback for the 2020 model year, and they've carried it over into the 2021 model year with only minimal changes. So we're going to be reviewing this Outback as both of those model years. And today I'm going to show you what the Subaru Outback is all about. So starting with the exterior of the Subaru Outback, you are not going to mistake this for a regular crossover or an SUV. It definitely has more wagon proportions than pretty much anything else. Of course, though, it is lifted, giving you that sort of an SUV vibe that people love. We've got the Onyx Edition XT here, which is the cheapest way to get a turbocharged Outback, and I'm glad Subaru has put the turbocharged engine back in the Outback. It was a sorely missing option, although the flat six they used to do was pretty cool as well. We have the same sort of styling you're going to get on the Legacy sedan. These cars are based on the same platform, but of course the Outback is longer and of course is a wagon that is lifted. Now we also have this body cladding here with a good amount of ground clearance that's going to help you off-roading. I love the black wheels that you get on the Onyx Edition, and as you can see, that cladding continues all the way down. We have our signature Outback logo down there towards the side. You also get roof rails on the Outback as standard. These come on all trim levels of the Outback. Adds a little bit more practicality. If you can't fit something inside the vehicle, you can always attach it to the roof racks. Now back here we have our sort of smoked taillights, making this look definitely like the most aggressive Outback that I've ever seen. I really do like the appearance here on the Onyx Edition. We also have blacked out badges here. Subaru all-wheel drive symmetrical Outback XT, all in black. I wouldn't order it in white. I would order it in a cooler color, but I definitely think the Onyx Edition is the coolest way to get an Outback. So let's check out the interior of the Subaru Outback, where if you are a previous Outback owner coming into this new generation, which began in the 2020 model year, you are going to be very surprised at some of the innovations that Subaru has made here on the interior. We have this very nicely shaped steering wheel with good materials and nice thick stitching. The gauges are nothing special. We've got analog tachometer and speedometer there with a little helper screen there in the middle, controlled by the steering wheel. I do like the trim and color choices that they've done here on this Onyx Edition that I've been sent. Remember, this is the cheapest way to get into a turbocharged Outback. I love the seats particularly. They've gone for a combination of black gray with this really cool green stitching. So they have a lot of surfaces all over the place. Some of them are gray, some of them are black. Really cool cabin. The one thing I'll note though is that I just drove the Subaru Legacy not that long ago, and I felt that the seats were a little bit softer on that model. I think maybe because they know the Outback customer is a little more outdoorsy, they've made the materials a little more thick and durable here, which means the seat is not uncomfortable, it's just not as ridiculously plush as it was in the Legacy, which was one of the softest seats I've been in for a really long time. Now, I do need to mention this massive 11.6-inch Starlink infotainment system. It is optional here on the Onyx Edition. We have it as part of a package that I think also includes the sunroof here on this vehicle. Now, the Starlink infotainment system is very big. I don't love the way it's designed. It kind of reminds me of like one of those $30 Walmart tablets that you buy your kids when they want an iPad, but you want to wait till Christmas or the holidays to get them the actual iPad, and you just need to get them something in the meantime. The colors are very cartoonish. The graphics are fine, but it doesn't look very like professional, and it kind of doesn't match the rest of the sort of outdoorsy vibe of the Outback here. But it works works fine. It does have Android Auto and Apple CarPlay compatibility as well, which is nice. The one thing I'll say is the responsiveness could use some work. It's definitely not the quickest and most responsive system out there. It was a little quicker in the Outback, so maybe it just, or in the Legacy, so it maybe just varies vehicle to vehicle. Not a big deal though. I do think it's a pretty decent system. The only thing is annoying is all the climate controls are down here. You have to touch down here to get the fans to work, but you do at least have solid buttons for the temperature controls, volume, and tuning, which is great. The Outback also specifically has X mode. We'll talk a little bit more about that when we get it out on the road. This is an all-wheel drive vehicle with pretty good ground clearance. It's not something you're gonna go, you know, mudding with more than likely, but you do have a snow and dirt mode, and you also have a deep snow and deep mud mode, so you can get this vehicle into some pretty sticky situations and still come out ahead pretty well. Now it's time for the CarBuzz cup holder index, which also factors in practicality. We've got two cup holders here that fit my large Yeti with ease. We also have a really nice deep cubby here for a phone. I do like that as well. I love the double tiered armrest here that has two storage areas, and I do love how they have this area right here in front of the passenger where you can stick some items, you know, miscellaneous for the passenger, and it does have really nice deep bins here in the doors, so I'm gonna give the Subaru Outback a 4 out of 5. Now, because the Subaru Outback is more of a wagon than a traditional crossover, you have a lot more length than you do height. Now, this kind of doesn't give you the best headroom, although I have plenty back here. What it does give you is a massive amount of legroom. You have 39.5 inches back here, which is huge if you compared this to a lot of other compact crossovers, even some mid-size crossovers. And the nice thing is, if you do need a little bit more headroom, you have a little lever here on the side, and if I pull that, I can recline it back a little bit. Now I can kind of put my legs down and I have way more headroom. There is just a ton amount of space in here. I would really feel comfortable back here for a long period of time. I also, on the Onyx edition, have air vents here in the middle, 2 USB ports to charge my devices, and on the Onyx edition, we do have heated seats on the outsides. Now back here, the Subaru Outback is actually a very practical vehicle, but when you look at it by the numbers, they don't really pair out all that well. We've got 32.5 cubic feet of storage back here with the seats up, which is actually a lot lower than some rivals like the Honda CR-V, which is a massive vehicle for its class. That's actually categorized as a compact crossover, whereas the Outback is technically a mid-size. Now, where it does catch up is when you fold those seats down. So you can actually pull these levers here, and then you'll have to wait for them to fall. I do like the ability to fold the seats from the second row or from the trunk. I always love when automakers include that. Now we have over 75 cubic feet of storage, which is really practical. The reason for that discrepancy is because the Subaru isn't quite as high, so you're losing some of that volume in terms of height, but you're really getting it in terms of length because the Subaru Outback is a very long vehicle. And while we're back here, I really love the fact that we have a little cargo net here. We have plenty of tie-down areas, and we have these little pop-out hooks for groceries, and I do like that on the Onyx edition we do have a power tailgate. Alright, so now let's see how the Subaru Outback gets on out on the road, and we have two available engines under the hood. We have the optional engine, but the base is a 2.5 liter Boxer 4-cylinder. Subaru loves their little Boxer engines. The pistons fire sideways rather than up and down. You get 182 horsepower and 176 pound-feet of torque. Now, doesn't sound like that much, and I bet you this vehicle is not very spry with that engine. We have the optional 2.4 liter, yes, it's actually a little bit smaller, turbocharged Boxer engine, and this one produces a lot more power. 260 horsepower and 277 pound-feet of torque. Now, the performance benefits from this engine are massive. You go from about an 8.7 second 0 to 60 time with the normally aspirated engine to about 6.3 seconds in this with the turbo. Now, both are powered, they send their power out to a continuously variable transmission, so neither one is very sporty in its application, but trust me, this turbo is definitely smoother, more powerful. You put your foot down, you get good responsiveness. It does pick up quite easily. The CVT does a nice job of putting down the power smoothly, definitely not with too much aggression. And the nice thing about the Outback has always been the standard all-wheel drive. A lot of SUVs now come with front-wheel drive as standard, but not the Outback. You always get Subaru's symmetrical all-wheel drive with torque vectoring that gives you a lot of grip. You also get in the Outback an X mode, which I showed you while we were parked. And that's going to help you in snow or mud or sand or anything like that that you might be driving through. This isn't like a heavy-duty off-road vehicle, but with the ground clearance and everything like that, it is very capable. People love driving these in northern states, you know, your Washington State, Oregon, Massachusetts, you know, places where it snows a lot. Subaru Outback is a fantastic option. And what's interesting is that this Outback rides on Subaru's new global platform, which also underpins the Legacy that I drove just a few videos ago. And the global platform from the last generation is stiffened. They've improved the body rigidity a lot, and that improves the responsiveness of the steering. It makes the car smoother and lighter, and it makes it handle better. And you wouldn't expect the Outback just by looking at it to drive well, but it really, really does. The steering is actually really natural. It has a decent amount of feel. The ride is really nice, although I think the Legacy was a little bit smoother, definitely quieter too. I'm not sure if maybe the higher trims of the Outback get the thicker glass and some other noise, vibration, and harshness enhancements, but I noticed that the Legacy was a little bit quieter than this, but this is still a very quiet, very comfortable vehicle. There is more body roll in this than you get in the Legacy. Of course, you know, the higher ground clearance, you know, it does sort of pitch and roll and, you know, go bump up and down a little bit more over bumps, you know, but I really do think that this is a nice alternative for somebody who doesn't need the massive size of like a compact crossover or a mid-size. The Outback feels a little bit more car-like because it's almost like a wagon. You know, it's lifted, but it's not quite as tall and as narrow as an SUV. It's longer, wider, a little bit lower. So I really do like the feeling of being raised from the road, but not raised so high that I feel like I'm driving something massive in a truck. And I think you might like that as well. And the fuel economy is pretty good for an all-wheel drive vehicle as well. 22 mpg in the city, 30 on the highway, and 26 combined. That's with the turbocharged engine. You'll do a little bit better with the base engine. So overall, I'm very happy with the way the Outback drives. It's definitely not a sporty experience, but it is very comfortable. It is more dynamic than you think, and in the snow and mud, it's more capable than most people could ever need, making this a very nice overall package. So that was the 2020 and 2021 Subaru Outback. Pricing starts at a little over $26,000. Now we have the Onyx edition, which is the cheapest way to get into a turbocharged Outback. It's going to cost you about 35 grand. You need to add 1,800 to get the bigger infotainment system and the sunroof. Now the fully loaded version of the Outback is going to ring you about $40,000. You know, putting this in the same sort of category as a lot of compact crossovers, Toyota RAV4, Honda CR-V, things like that, but the practicality is very different on this. It's a lot more rugged than those vehicles. I think it definitely gives off a very different sort of aesthetic. There's really nothing quite like the Outback anymore. Buick tried and failed with the Regal Tour X. You have some luxury options like the Volvo V60 Cross Country. You also have the Audi A4 Allroad, but those are significantly more expensive than the Subaru Outback. So if you want an affordable wagon that also has some off-road capability, this is kind of your one and only option. All right, folks, that was our review of the 2020 and 2021 Subaru Outback. I hope you enjoyed it. We have so many more videos like it. We'd love for you to click on them and subscribe to our channel. It really helps us create more videos like this. And remember, YouTube does not remind you when we put up new videos unless you hit that notification bell and leave us a like. That would also be very appreciated. And be sure to check us out on other platforms. We have the CarBuzz app on iOS and Android where you can learn all about latest and greatest cars just like this Subaru Outback. But until then, I'll see you next time.